Yeah, I've got some just reflect. It's really more the iceberg. There's a certain bubble there. Circle, but don't want to circle it, if that makes sense. And it's brought out a huge amount of stuff. In fact, I've basically closed off. I didn't hear anything you said for the last 10, 15 minutes. So I guess that's a bubble I need to look at, isn't it?
Yes. Because remember last week when we were talking about when we say I know that, or when we kind of like check out, there was something that I said just before that got your brain thinking.
Yeah.
So it kind of like that, to me, that highlights that you touched upon something pretty important. So that can be definitely a bubble. It's like, there's a part of me that's stuck in there. So that's a really good realization that you noticed the process.
Yeah, and I noticed that I disassociated basically. I was like,
yeah,
we were talking, but I really wasn't taking any notice. And then that causes me to feel guilty. So I've come back now, but yeah.
So then the guilt is also a bubble.
Okay.
Because from my point of view, what you did was a very good thing, and there's no need to feel guilty about it. But for you, there's a bubble where you were made to feel guilty for, I'm just going to use this example, for checking out. Yeah. We've got two bubbles there, John. Two for the price of one.
Double whammy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Natasha?
Move on.
She's bubbling.
Nicola?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Just exhausted because there's a lot to take in, isn't there?
Yeah.
And a bit like John. When I start circling, I know that I'm stuck.
Yeah. That's a good thing. Make sure you drink plenty of water, get some fresh air, and journal. The journaling, like I say. And if too much stuff comes up, post it in the group or send me a message and we'll break it down. But it is, that's why I like to use the blue sky thinking. It's like, I'm not all of these thoughts. These thoughts are going on because my brain is trying to make sense of it. And as we go through the process, we will make sense of it. Jeroen.
I'm with Nicola. Like, there were times when I got exhausted. I was just yawning, got very tired, and kind of felt me checking out.
Yeah.
And I know what that means. So, work in progress.
It brought up a lot of stuff for me.
It what?
It brought up a lot of stuff for me.
Yeah.
Like half an hour ago, I went, excuse my French, holy fucking shit, how am I meant to do all of this stuff?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And my whole brain went down the road of like, oh my God, I have to find time, and how I'm going to find time in my schedule, and you're still talking, and realizing, it's time is my word right now. With things. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. So I haven't heard the last half an hour because I've gone off on a whole different. So please, can we have the recording? It was literally like, okay, well, I can might be able to fit some in this afternoon and maybe tomorrow. And
You play all the England.
Pardon?
You play all things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when we was doing like the journey, the wall. So yeah, I haven't actually like heard much after that.
That's all right.
I'll ask you, going back to the building.
Yes.
The way you say the ceiling, would that be some? I sort of have like what I call a brick wall of fear. Would that be your witness of the ceiling?
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. You just cannot get to it. Yeah. Cool.
And we use that. We kind of like use that fear when we I don't know what the word is, but we use that fear as an excuse for not going beyond.
Yeah.
So behind that fear, it's like, you know, there will be something that is going on. So it's easy for me to say, kind of like, what's an example? See, the simple example to explain it. I'm afraid of public speaking. So it's easy for me to say that, but when I start to look at it, and we cover some of this later on as well, it's like, well, what am I really afraid of by speaking in public? Then I start to get to the root cause, and then I'll go, this is my echo. And sometimes when we draw that line with the echo, we can kind of like, you know, and this is what we spoke about last week with about the self-compassion. We start to see reality differently. We start to kind of like detach ourselves from it, and we can start to apply a different logic. When I keep it all in my body, it's all consuming. So it might feel uncomfortable, but like I said earlier on, it's good that we feel uncomfortable because our body's communicating to us. But because we're so used to not listening to our body, we normally push the emotion away and then pretend that it didn't get to us. But inside we go, why? Yeah. Good.
Could I just ask one more quick question?
Of course you can.
I think because you were telling us so much, and unfortunately I wasn't processing it as fast as I might have liked to, so my brain felt like it was on catch up. What was the bit about the 5-year chunks? What do we need to do with that?
So if you draw a line, like if you kind of like look at your echoes or the things that are in your foundation, you can kind of like say, okay, well, what happened or what emotionally charged event did I go through during those 5 years that could make me think that way, or that I still have charge around, or whatever it is. So what I learned recently, and by recently I mean in like just on my journey, is that I had dealt with a lot of my stuff on a mental and emotional and spiritual level, but I never kind of like realized that I hadn't dealt with the physical part of the trauma that I went through. And when I did that exercise in 5-year chunks, I saw where there was one that kind of like, for me, like I said, my throat chakra has always been the most blocked. I saw the one that kind of like made me feel most choked up. And it's like, okay, there's some work that needs to be done around that event. So I went and I asked someone, I said, can I work through this? Because I have a therapist that I go and see, and she helped me work through that. And what I then saw is that it had a ripple effect on other traumas going on in my life. So all of a sudden, those other ones that I had written almost, I'm not saying that they disappeared, but they almost seemed inconsequential because I dealt with the root cause of it. It's like, that's where a lot of this stuff is coming from. So that's what the purpose of the 5-year chunks is, because, you know, you'll have one or two that will create the most tension within your body that you'll go, oh, fuck, I don't want to go there. So that's
could you show us on a piece of paper maybe what that looks like, 5-year chunks, just to see it tangible?
So this is where I was born, and now I'm 25. Not a day over, not a day younger. So then I break it down into like 0 to 5. Are there any significant events that I can remember happening then? 5 to 10. Are there any significant events that I can recognize happening then? And the same like that. So for me, like what I was talking about, my trauma went back to when I was 3 or 4. And I remember it vividly. And it's one that I thought that I had dealt with. But when I did an exercise like that, it's like, oh, fuck. That's where a lot of this, where Gareth first learned that he was not allowed to be himself. Because if he was allowed to be himself and say what was on his mind, he gets in big, big trouble. And that started to have an effect. So every time I wanted to speak up, I either didn't speak up or it came across so almost like I was forcing things. And when I dealt with that, to be perfectly honest, when I dealt with that, that's what gave me the courage to say, okay, I want to do perfectly imperfect. I'm ready now. But I realized that all my other excuses, it's not perfect enough. I don't have enough information. I don't know enough technically to do it. I can't do something on my own, da, 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 da. It came from that. It boiled down to Gareth was not allowed to be himself. So that's kind of like how it works. And then there'll be, you know, there'll be similar things. There will be other instances where I expressed myself in my own way and I got in trouble. But when I popped that original, when I dealt with that original bubble, all these other ones like seemed inconsequential. It's like, okay, that's why that happened. That's why. So does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Fast? Jerome? Okay.
Yes.
Good. So if you're all comfortably uncomfortable,
If you're all fried.
I'm going to.
Can I just recap then? Sorry.
Yes.
So obviously we're journaling a lot again this week, or catching up from last week. We're doing the chakras.
Yeah.
And which one challenges and charges us the most?
Yeah.
And some work around that.
Yeah. Or you don't need to do any work around it. You just need to acknowledge and write down which one has the most charge.
So how do we rebalance it?
That's what we're doing going through the program. Because the echo will be the echo will be what's blocking.
Okay. And then what is my limiting beliefs and self-talk about the most challenging chakra?
Yeah. Which will be part of your house.
Which will be part of the house.
Yeah, that's the purpose of filling in your house. Because those will be the contributors to what's bad, what's contributing to the blockage in the chakra.
Okay. And then what happens if somebody found out my deepest, darkest secret?
Yeah. What would that secret be? Yeah. So for me,
secret be not them finding out, but what is the secret?
Yeah. So for me, like if I share a part of mine, it would be, well, what would people think of me if they found out that my dad made me sleep outside with the dog? That was one of mine. It's like, it was something that I never really, like, yeah, I've spoken to Jerome about it. But if the world found that out, what would they think? That was one of them, you know, or what would people do if they found out that I used to sell drugs? Things like that.
Many secrets.
Yeah, that's all right.
I do apologize, but I need to go.
I was going to say, you need to take your mum.
Yeah. So,
Hey, Jerome.
I'll see you next week.
See you on Facebook.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Drive safely.
Okay. Perfect. Being perfect. Gareth, can you fly over here for the next session, please?
That would be cool, wouldn't it? We'd have big flip charts and shit to draw on.
Okay.
But also, like, you know, one thing that helps me when I do, you know, because like I said, just because I've accepted who I am and that sort of stuff doesn't mean that stuff still comes up every now and then. You know, like I said, I only realized like maybe 6 or 7 months ago what was holding me back so much from sharing about this stuff, but also from sharing about other stuff that we do. But it gets easier to deal with. And I tell myself, you know, like, it's not happening anymore. It's happened, but I just haven't dealt with it fully. And just because you bring an awareness to it doesn't mean that you have to deal with it right away. Do you know what I mean? It's there, but you've got it out on paper. So using that complex simplicity, your mind's going to go, okay, it's out for now. But my rebel within me, remember that diagram going, the fear and that sort of stuff? My rebel in me will want to take back control. It's like, no, I don't want to feel that. I've got to be all in control. So we're going to be yo-yoing up and down that kind of like thing. So that's the main reason why that diagram is there, more to serve as a reminder than anything else. You know, so am I rebelling? Am I afraid of letting this go? Why am I clinging on to it so desperately, or that sort of stuff, you know? But this role has defined me. It's like, oh, poor Gareth. He was made to, even though I didn't share it, like, poor Gareth, he was made to sleep outside with the dog. That became a part of me deep down in who I was. So I always not played the victim, but I was always weak. And, you know, but so it's there more as a reminder. It's like, okay, there's something, you know, how would it feel to not be defined by those bubbles? You know, even if I ask you that question now, like, well, you know, how would it feel to not have those bubbles controlling you? It will give you a light sensation. It'll be like, oh, that will be so nice. So that's an indicator that your body knows on some level how to pop those bubbles. Sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance, but that's another thing that can help you. It's like, okay, I've got this shit out on paper. It's making me feel shit right now, but how am I going to feel when I finally put this to rest? And I think I wrote a post. I think I wrote a post on Facebook yesterday on my personal profile. It's like, we don't get over things, we get through them. But a lot of times we focus on getting over it. Like, the things that I've been through, I need to get through. And I come out the other side a different person, and I learn things. What we want to do now is get all 4 parts of our side through it. Because I've got there physically, I'm here. Do you know what I mean? So physically I've got here. Mentally, I'm a lot here, you know, even though I keep telling myself negative things. But maybe emotionally and spiritually, I'm still stuck there. So I want to get the rest of me through. Makes sense?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All right, peeps.
Let's boil and bubble.
Let's boil and bubble. And write. It is. So, like, I will be honest, that's one of the most difficult things to make a habit to do. Because and I've spoken to Jerome about it, and I know he won't mind me saying it. He's like, but the writing feels pointless. I keep writing that. That's why it was like, his why question. I keep writing the same thing over and over again. It's like, so what? Still write every day. You obviously need to get something out. But now with this sort of stuff, you have some kind of like direction to write on. But for me, even now, and I've been doing it almost every single day for nearly 20 years now, is I write. Some days I only write 2 or 3 lines. Other days I write 2 or 3 pages, but I still make it a priority to write every day. You know, sometimes if I travel or anything, I might forget my diary at home. So then I just type a note on my phone. But I carry my diary with me every day. Every morning I have to walk my dog. So I walk my dog, and then I'll find a place to sit for 5 or 10 minutes and just sit and write. Even if it's like, today I don't think that I have anything to write about. And sometimes what goes on is like, oh yes, da 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 da. Or I tap into my body and say, okay, well, where do I feel any blockages? Is there something emotionally, or is there something I need to address physically? I make new diagrams. I constantly, because I love doing this kind of thing, I constantly track my thought processes when I get learnings and insights, and I'll make new diagrams. Because then next time I have a similar situation, it's like, oh, okay, bum, 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 bum. And that's what we'll work through as we go through the process. That was like a long answer to a short question. All right, everybody, I'm going to take my dog for a walk.
Thank you.
And that's not the metaphorical take my dog for a walk either. All right, everybody. Thank you.
See you next week. Take
Have a
care.
good week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.